the video on dealing with imaginary square roots. In other videos, we examined I, this number, how it equals the square root of -1, and then looked at the pattern of I, where we have I to the 0 is 1, I equals -1, I squared, I equals the square root of -1, so I squared equals -1, and then I to the third power equals I squared times I, so -I, and then I to the fourth equals +1 again. We just saw that this pattern is going to repeat over and over again in a cycle, where every 4 exponents of I to the 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7 will be the exact same, right? This pattern of 1, square root of -1, -1, and I repeats over and over again. But another way, and another type of problem you might see, is that what if you have the square root of a negative number, like the square root of -9, or the square root of -4, or the square root of -16. What do we do? Well, this is where I comes into play. You want to think of the square root of -9 as, square root of -9 is equal to 9 times -1. Since -9 is equal to 9 times -1, you could think of this as the square root of 9 times the square root of -1, and that just equals, the square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of -1 is I. So the square root of -9 is just 3i. And here is another example. I'll use a different color. Well, the square root of -4. Well, I think you can think of -4 as 4 times -1, and then solve the square root. So it would be the square root of 4 times the square root of -1, and that just equals 2 times I, because the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of -1 is I. And as another example, we could have the square root of -16. You can think of that as, 16 times -1. So we have the square root of 16 times the square root of -1, which equals 4i, because the square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of -1 is I. So this number I really helps us deal with all types of square roots. And my strategy right here goes back to the idea that the square root of A times the square root of B is always going to be equal to the square root of AB, right? Because here we have the square root of -9. Think of that as your AB, and then we work backwards. Well, that equals the square root of A times the square root of B, or the square root of 9 times the square root of 1. And we can cover that in other videos. But basically, the square root of imaginary numbers pops up whenever you're dealing with the square root of any negative value.